Welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast, where we sit down and have real conversations with business leaders that have been where you are. During these interviews, we'll dive into what it takes to improve systems and champion processes that maximize performance. Each week, our trailblazing guests share their experiences and understanding of the workforce to help inspire change, challenge our thinking, and share what it takes to successfully travel the road to profitability. Now here's our host, co-founder and chief evangelist of About Time and WorkMax, Mike Merrill.
Hello, and welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast. I am your host, Mike Merrill, and today we are sitting down with Jeffrey Nesbitt, the National Director of Consulting Services at CLA. We asked him on the show today to talk about the cost of not fixing your business communication problems. Welcome, Jeffrey. We are grateful to have you on the podcast today.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you guys having me on. Looking forward to our time.
Awesome. This will be fun. So first off, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, your company, and the day-to-day for you?
Sure. So I started off in this crazy industry, 16, 17 years ago. Did some estimating and project management for a masonry company, and soon discovered, although I love the work, that it probably wasn't for me. And from there, I actually jumped into the construction technology sector. So spent the better part of my career in the technology specific around construction for a decade or so before moving into CLA's role here, helping them head up their construction practice for our clients around best practices, operations, and utilizing technology.
That's awesome. Well, you have a very diverse background for sure. And I've seen you around the circuit, so to speak, for most of those 17 years. So
yes, yeah, we have bumped in more than once. That's for sure. That's why I was looking forward to chatting with you guys today and sharing with you a little bit about what we're doing and seeing.
Awesome. Well, that's great. Well, I mean, every week we try and have some meaningful conversations, things that hopefully we can bring some aha moments to people in the industry and in the trades. One of the things that we wanted to focus on with you today is really what is the cost of companies not addressing or fixing their technology issues or challenges that you teach to companies?
Sure. Well, that's a great question, because that's really what drove me to move to CLA. There's a certain point in time when you're on the software side or the operations or being an actual contractor where we have to merge these worlds together. And, we just saw at CLA that there was a gap there, if you will, that needed to be filled. We have over 9,000 clients at CLA and over 350 employees focused specifically in construction. We're in other verticals, but really in construction, we've been voted #1 by Construction Executive Magazine the last 2 years in a row. So we're really excited about that because, as a services firm, we want to bring more than some just traditional services. And so for us, aligning operations and best practices and technology has been a key differentiator. And so when we work with our clients, I know you guys see it too, contractors are busy. Everybody's busy. There's no one sitting around on their hands. We're short staffed. We've got a lot to do. And we all see challenges or things broken in our own companies or in our own lives, right? And we're so busy, we don't have time to fix them. So to your point, there is a cost of not fixing problems, and it's the cost of what are you losing? And that's really what we try to focus on and sharing with our clients is, yeah, we can get better if we implemented, a new mobile app. That's a true statement. But if we don't have time to implement it, what is it costing us not to do that? And that's really where I help share with our clients that there is a cost to do nothing. And a lot of times that cost outweighs actually doing something.
Yeah, very insightful. And you again, with your background, you would know, no question about it. So does this, I guess, if I'm trying to break it down, it sounds like you use the example of a mobile app. It sounds like communication tools are one area of improvement that companies could take to kind of fix those communication gaps. What are some examples of things like that companies can adopt to improve?
Yeah, the biggest hurdle in our industry is that communication. And within communication is really data, isn't it? You know, that's what communication is. We're sharing information back and forth. And as contractors, you know, if someone tells us, you know, you're a data company, you know, we go crazy, right? What are you talking about? No, I build high rises, or I lay asphalt and all that fun stuff. But the truth is you're collecting data. And so when you don't have a way to get that information from the field to the back office, that's where I see with our clients profit fade happening. And that's what the big challenge is. We are so busy, and a lot of times we understand we have challenges, but it's just not the technology piece, Mike. I think more importantly, it's the process piece. That's really where we focus our efforts, because if we can't fix our processes, it doesn't matter what technology we apply, it's not going to help it, or in some cases, it's going to make it worse.
That's a great point. You mentioned a word, you talked about profit fade. What does that mean for our listeners?
Well, the simplest thing is margin, right? That's in our industry, we've got some of the tightest margins of any industry in the world, but yet we build the most complex projects. And so profit fade is when we take that very, very small margin and we start shrinking it down and down and down until there's almost nothing there, because we're not communicating effectively. We're wasting time looking for project data information that's maybe causing conflicts out in the field, that may be causing reworks, right? All this stuff adds up to time. You know, time is money. And when we sit down with our clients and go through sort of what is it you're doing today, that's where we really find out what's the cost of doing nothing, Mike, right? When we find out, hey, what happens when a project manager's got to approve an AP invoice, right? What does that process look like? What if he has a change order and doesn't submit it in a timely manner, or it's sitting, you know, on a notepad in his desk, in his truck, right? His mobile office, right? So that's the stuff that we look at. And, you know, there's been studies done by FMI, PlanGrid, even anecdotally myself. It will show that, you know, in a typical week, there's almost 35% of people's time spent on non-optimal activities. So that's the cost of doing nothing. That's hours. You know, if your PM's losing 4 to 5 hours a week, that's money, you know, and if you've got 5, 10 PMs, that could be another full-time employee, right? Who wouldn't love to find a full-time employee in this market?
Yeah, right. Great point. Yeah. So a lot of construction companies have those resources. They're just not leveraging them properly because they're wasting time on tasks and efforts that don't bring revenue.
Yeah, it's really cleaning up those internal processes first. You know, the old Michael Jackson song, "The Man in the Mirror," right? You got to do that first look inside and say, like, what am I doing? Like, and it's hard as a contractor. You know, we're proud people and we love to just do it ourselves. Like, yeah, I know what the problem is and I'll fix it myself, right? You know, who's got the leakiest roof? You know, in the neighborhood, it's the roofing contractor. Why? Because he doesn't have time, right? So there's just no time. And so that's why I always encourage people, if you can bring in somebody to help you to actually manage this process of, hey, how do we clean up some of these internal things and figure out what is best practices? That's when you can apply technology. Otherwise, you know, you're just buying technology for the right purposes. You know, people have good intentions in their hearts. Owners are buying mobile applications, whether it's for project management, mobile timekeeping, forms in the field, things like that. But if they don't implement a process that the technology can support, then you're really losing user adoption, and there's no ROI for these folks, unfortunately.
Yeah. What I'm hearing, and something that I always like to say too, is software to work properly and to be of value requires users. So that means they got to use. If they're not opening the app and leveraging the tools within it, then there's no value, right?
Yeah, I haven't seen an app yet that's like a genie bottle where you rub it and, you know, unicorns and rainbows shoot out and everything's wonderful, right? It still takes people and processes. The technology is that last piece. So you have to do those other two things first in order to leverage technology. And then again, it's consistently reinforcing and training, configuring that technology to mirror your processes also helps in the user adoption, because this is the way we work.
So what are, and I love that you talk about people and processes, because again, software can be, the magic bullet, but without people utilizing it properly, it's shelfware, right? Collecting dust.
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges that you see most prevalent in construction companies today to avoid adoption, or to kind of, knock the adoption into a rut? And then what can companies do to help avoid those pitfalls?
Well, it's all about commitment. It's like anything else in life. If you're not committed to something or the activity or the task at hand, it's not going to be successful. So you have to have commitment from senior leadership first, and then you have to have a plan in place that supports that commitment, which is, how do we utilize this technology? How do we leverage it in our day-to-day functions? And then furthermore, it's making sure that they're doing these things, right? If you're going to buy a project management solution or a mobile timekeeping solution, well, when you're having your, weekly or monthly PM updates, are you reviewing the reports that the software generates, right? That helps encourage people that I have to utilize this tool, because every Friday I'm going to sit down and the boss is going to pull it up and say, well, where's the data? Where's the numbers? So you sort of have to build that into your management processes to encourage people getting on board and utilizing the technology. If there's no accountability there, if we're not referencing the tool or using it to manage our projects or processes, then you're exactly right. It could get thrown on a shelf. And that's what happens with mobile stuff. And I know you see it, Mike, most of all. It's not like an accounting system where, hey, we got to run payroll, so we have to do it. It really forces it. You have to take that same thought process and apply that to your field tools.
Yeah. Oh, that's great advice. I think, one of the things, I always hear this phrase, you can't manage what you don't measure. And I love that and agree with it. However, just because you measured it doesn't mean you're done. You've got to execute and apply that measurement to that process. And then now you're leveraging the data, people are depending on it and counting on it, right? So there's kind of a plan to execute the plan. So here's what we're going to measure. Here's what we're going to do to review and be accountable and report on those findings. And then you can actually invoke change is what I'm hearing you saying.
Absolutely. If the people that aren't, when I look at our clients and we talk, the people that aren't learning today from that data that they're collecting and the information, those are the ones, unfortunately, probably won't be around tomorrow. We used to be in a market where, we could throw more people at a problem and fix it. And so we don't have that today. So if we can't take these tools and utilize them to turn 1 p.m. into 2 p.m., have a field supervisor be able to manage just one more project on his plate, right? We can have the revenue going up without adding the headcount. We can make more effective decisions as an organization. People always, I joke with contractors, I'm like, you're a data management company and a learning organization. And if you're not, you need to be, because your competitors are.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I've heard of contractors referred to as risk managers. That's what they are. But I love that you are calling them a data organization. I haven't heard that phrase before, and I hope you don't mind if I steal it a little bit.
No, just don't trademark it.
Okay.
Or copy in.
Helping each other out.
There you go.
But what I'm hearing though is that there's some cost to put these processes in place. Some of it's money. That's the obvious one. Your time, a consulting firm's time, a software provider's time. But then when we get an investment in a process or a solution that we feel like is going to be beneficial, hopefully there's an ROI or return on investment on that investment, right? How long have you seen some of those take, for example, like maybe a couple of different systems or process you put into place, and maybe you can share some generic examples so people know what they're looking at.
Yeah, when you talk people, process, and tools and software, that really is that triangle of truth, if you will, of when we put things together. And so for me, the ROI on the people, process, and software is probably the most easy thing to measure. If I look at mobile time cards, and I just was at a client last week, they're still using paper time cards. We got over 9,000 clients. A lot of them are still using paper time cards, right? So that's one example where I look at it and I say, okay, it's taking you 20 minutes to get a time card processed. That's from the time that they get it to the office to them entering it into whatever accounting system they have to being able to update their job cost reports and then print checks. Well, you know, a simple tool like a mobile timekeeping, well, that could save you 15 minutes. So that's like an easy ROI. Like, okay, well, 15 minutes times how many employees? I mean, that's simple math. But for me, it goes so far beyond the ROI, which I think in any application nowadays, it's a year or less. It's 6 months or less in some of these mobile apps, quite honestly. But what's the real value is visibility. It's visibility into your job, a snapshot, a look in a window at any point in time, right? That to me is way bigger than anything I'm going to spend on consulting and or software, because I want to know from the time of an occurrence happening in the field, what is that cost impact realized in the office so I can make a decision. That is shortening that cycle. That's profit fade, right? How do we get it down? And so for me, it's about having confidence in my numbers, visibility into my organization to make decisions about the future we're going to go. I mean, Forrester Research, they did this study that said you have only 12% of the available data executives do, decision makers, when making a decision on their company. So that to me is the value, right? Can you imagine in this world, something we could all relate to, COVID-19. When you go into your doctor, are you going to accept 12% of his diagnosis only? I mean, where in life is this acceptable?
Yeah. Or you've got a terminal illness or some kind of a bad illness, and they say you got a 12% chance of living. It's not very good.
Yeah, exactly. We're only telling 12% of the solution. So we have it. To me, that's the bigger picture. And our, you know, owners and executives, when I talk to our clients, I'll be honest, that's what keeps them up at night. Is not understanding or having that visibility in what's happening in a project, or even having confidence in it.
Well, and what's, you know, I read another report, it was McKinsey and Associates, and they said that according to that one, and it was a certain segment of questioning, but they said that only 6% of the data was being leveraged, and this a few years back. Whether it's 6 or 12 or even 20, it's horrid.
Let's say 40%. Congratulations, it's still not good enough.
Yeah, unbelievable. So what I'm hearing is really data. Data is the key to not only improving, but really making those decisions that are not only going to make you around next week, next month, next year, but there's a huge opportunity to widen the gap between you and the competition if you can harness this data, even a fraction more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, it all just falls back into that, hey, how do we clean up our internal processes? Because, you know, when you go out and we talk with our clients, one of the common things I hear is, you know, I work with the estimating department, I work with the accounting department, I work with the project managers, the field, the soups, and the reality is the way we estimate a job is not the way we account for a job, which is not the way we manage or build it in the field, right? But everybody in that job everyone in that company is touching a job at any given point in time. So you have to connect those bridges and those dots together to get the full picture in your organization. And for companies that are productivity driven, this is really, really important. You know, the units in place, the quantities, the linear feet, square feet, you know, all that type of measurables. If you're not seeing that in real time today, that's the real challenge in the market.
So real-time productivity tracking and trending, I guess, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the hugest risk that contractors are facing right now, especially when they have, you know, separate estimating, accounting, project management tools, and if they're not all talking to each other, and you're still having to do data entry from one to another, you know, that's definitely a red flag or an area for risk.
Okay, so integrating that data, letting it communicate with other systems, or sharing of that data. I heard the
Yeah.
real-time component. So does that mean cloud-based solutions, or kind of where you try and push or recommend?
Yeah, we no longer, this is not a personal religious belief of mine or anything, but it's all to the cloud. It's trending there. It's all there. The reality is even the ones that still sell on-prem do hosted, and that's what they push. And the market wants that. I know our clients at CLA want that. They're not looking to become IT companies. The thing I always hear most is I've bought my last server. What do I need to do?
Right.
Because no one needs those anymore in the storage closets and all that fun stuff. So having a cloud-based software is more important now than ever. And I encourage, the contractors listening, that whatever product you pick needs to be like Switzerland. It needs to play well with others, because it's about the best solution for the right department to achieve what they need to do. But, as an organizational, holistically, ownership needs to say, hey, do these things all play well together? Because I'm not buying 4 applications and having 4 people have to type in information into each one.
You sound like a guy that's been around the block a time or 10.
I have. I've got like I said, a weird background, but I try to use that to leverage to help the contractors. I have a passion around the industry, because we get to see it everywhere. Isn't it exciting? When you walk out your door, you see our industry and the homes you just walked out, the bridges, tolls you're going across, the highways. So it's an exciting industry. So I do have a passion around making sure we are efficient in what we do and profitable.
Yeah, I love that. It is everywhere, and it touches everyone. I'll live in a home somewhere, or an apartment or condo, whatever it is.
Right.
You're living in a structure, and somebody had to build that thing and has to maintain it.
Yep.
And the roads you drive down, the bridges, like you say. So it is, it's what attracted me to it. I always wanted to get into construction because I wanted to be able to do those things. I didn't know my path to get there, but it, unfolded before me, and I took those roads that led me down the path, and those led me back here where I'm, helping run a software company. So, but that company serves the construction industry because, just like you, that's where my expertise and my passion have been. And so it's great to have friends in the industry that feel passionate and excited about it like I do.
Yeah, and it's exciting time, I think, in our industry. I think it's been trending that way, as you know, for probably the last 5 to 7 years, but really here in 2020, it's really picked up, with the pandemic. And I know within our clients, if they weren't stressing about PPP, they were reaching out to me to say, Jeffrey, in this no on-premise, no touch world, how do I know what's going on with my projects?
Yeah.
We can't drive time cards into the office anymore because the payroll clerk ain't there to pick them up.
And if they are, they may not want to touch the paper.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So we've been trending this way, but really it's been kicked into overdrive this year because of the pandemic. And so I don't think it's ever going to go back. I think organizations are learning that this is where the efficiencies are in operations. It's not, you can make your accounting department a little more efficient, but usually they're running pretty lean. It's in the operations, it's in the project management, it's in the field, it's in the crews, it's in timekeeping, it's in, solutions around those areas.
Well, nobody gets paid until somebody builds something or puts something in place. And so that means the dollars can either stack up or be siphoned out at that point. And so leveraging that data in real time as those things are occurring, so you can make those decisions. I can see why it feels like you're saying that's kind of the low hanging fruit is, kind of capturing that at the source initially, and then let everything else, all that data roll through the process where everybody else can make decisions based on that.
Yeah, it's at the source, and the source could be anything. It could be at, at the estimating level, it could be at the field or the accounting level. It's as I mentioned earlier, everything's interlinked. So as the life cycle of a job happens, the right person should be entering the right data at the right time, so we can use that to make better decisions.
Yeah, that's great. All right. So we've talked about some of those gaps, some of those challenges. Are there any stories you can think of? I mean, generically, you don't have to name clients, but where somebody actually put something in place like these things we're talking about and actually shared their surprising results with you, and excitement or enthusiasm of, oh, wow, anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, there's, the low hanging fruit I always find is in the payroll piece. I find it in accounts payable, believe it or not. And then I find it in project management. And so, sometimes, when we look at a payroll process, like I said, hey, if we can cut 15 minutes off, it could save us all this time. And a lot of times, with the mobile apps, there's more things than just the payroll, right? There's different forms out there that they're filling in, or they're taking pictures, that could relay problems to offset. But I can tell you, on the payroll side, I've seen companies save literally millions of dollars, a large contractor.
Wow.
That had lots of employees, 10,000 employees. And so let's just say they could save, was $3-4 million annually every year, year after year after year. But more importantly, what happened is it gave them that visibility into some of those job cost reports like we were talking about, where they were starting to see some of these labor overruns happening quicker on their jobs than they were previously doing, right? When they weren't blowing out the truck window or being stuck under the seat, they were missing those opportunities. So, depending on the size of contractor you are, it could be substantial.
So in those cases, were those companies surprised?
Yeah, it's people recognize, like I said, Mike, people recognize they have challenges or problems. It's the whole, I don't have time to fix it. And so that's why I like to say there is a cost of doing nothing, and again, that's both fiscally money lost, but more importantly, I think it's opportunity and visibility, right?
Yeah. So opportunity costs, meaning, and I guess if we put this in maybe a trades contractor context, if you're framing, 50 homes a year, one a week or something, it takes you, 600 man hours to do it on paper. What I'm hearing is maybe they could do it really in less hours that are now paid and documented because of a real-time app as opposed to pencil whipping timesheet.
Yeah.
And so
significant. You could figure it out, or you have a consultant come in who could figure that out. But the truth is I would imagine it could add up to several or a dozen extra homes a year.
Wow. So maybe even in a month.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Big opportunity. So really when I hear that and I put my contractor hat back on and think about when I was in business trying to do the same thing, the same hustle, it's like, that's exciting that most businesses today are profitable in their current processes and market. If they could make these changes and invest that little bit extra money in a system and a little bit of their resources, you said 6 months or maybe even less on some of these things.
Oh, absolutely.
They could be way.
Yes, absolutely. It used to be a year, on average, sort of when we looked at across different tools, let's just say, whether it was estimating, accounting, the field, it's down to 6 months. And they're, like I say, time cards and AP processing, even billing, quite honestly, is improving cash flow and forecasting when you could tie in some of these mobile applications that let the PM do the billing out in the field.
Yeah, and you mentioned before, you talked about change orders, and maybe it was on somebody's book in their mobile office, their truck sitting on the seat, and now they've missed the window or opportunity to submit that bill. So maybe there's unbilled labor that you're spending the money on and investing and getting nothing for. So the opportunity's gone, the cash is gone, and you can't bill anybody to replenish any of that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I worked with a contractor, to be nameless, and they had some good tools. Like, they had a good software application, they had a good project management software application. But like I said, if it's not like Switzerland and it doesn't play well with others, it doesn't do you any good. Because, when I went in there and sort of did the review, you go in and you find a $300,000 change order for a job that's been closed for a year. So, right, again, it's knowing that, but knowing it in a timely manner is more important, isn't it? And so, what we thought we had winners on, we sometimes have dogs, and we didn't get an opportunity to fix it because it wasn't integrated.
Interesting. So what are some of when you hear that pushback, or have you had companies that push back and then maybe came back down the road later and said, you know what, I think we just got to bite the bullet and do this? I mean, what are some of those experiences?
Yeah, I would say for the most part, by the time it hits my desk or my team's desk, there's a fair amount of pain, and through some conversations, I realized, we need to do this because we can't keep kicking the can down the road type of thing. But yeah, absolutely, where we talk to them, we share some challenges that we're seeing in their market or their industry or their local. As I mentioned, we've got 130 offices, so each sort of market has its own unique individual challenges. And yeah, they'll come back and say, yeah, you're right. And unfortunately, it's after they probably lost on a job somewhere by not addressing it and said, we got to do it now.
Yeah. So you're more in the emergency room level care, not the clinic down the street.
Yeah. Sometimes I get brought in when the fire is on the 5th floor as opposed to the ground floor sometimes. But yeah.
Or they're coming in an ambulance.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's no fun. That's why it's just best to when's the right time? No time like today is what I say, right?
Like planting a tree, they say.
Yeah.
When's the best time to plant it? 20 years ago?
Yeah,
When's the
exactly.
best time? Now.
Yeah, and they're starting to feel it with this pandemic, these different challenges. I think it's bringing it sort of to the forefront a little bit, which if there'll be one good thing out of 2020, maybe that'll be it.
Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of companies. Actually, they said, a lot of this stuff has been long overdue. This is just forcing our hand, and we just don't, even with, the social distancing and kind of the safe environments they've got to create. So maybe they don't have as much labor. They've got to do more work with less people. They're just being forced to get rid of these extra steps and processes and make decisions that give them visibility that they didn't ever put the time into or the money into before. So.
Yeah, I think it just leads back to the labor shortage. I mean, like I said, we used to throw people at the problem, and we had a bunch of them. We could overcome it with manpower, and we just don't have that today. So how do you overcome some of these challenges of getting projects done efficiently and timely when you don't have people to sort of toss at it? I think that's been a big driver for folks is I can't find another PM qualified, or maybe I find a junior PM, but how do I support him? You can't just give him a notepad and a pencil and tell him go at it and talk to the 10 other PMs you got, because they're all doing things differently, right? Mm-hmm. So there is a way to solve that problem.
So it also, to me, brings up another interesting point. You just talked about kind of these younger PMs or putting somebody in new. I continue to hear out there that there are less and less people entering the trades out of school, if they're even going to school. The blue collar worker is, going the way of the dodo, it seems, by statistic. So we're going to need, as an industry, to invest in tools that can replace the lack of people that we probably aren't going to have moving forward. Yeah,
it's really about automation, business process automation. So automate where you can in your processes. And that's what we help companies with a lot, which is, where can this is a process we can automate so we can free up people to do the things that we can't automate today, right? So shifting people around organizationally to get better value out of them and taking away some mundane processes. And then again, you have to develop the tools for this market and industry, because the labor force is changing. It's not a guy coming in saying, I want to do this manual job or, drive a backhoe. But what's real interesting is flying a drone over my job site, and tracking productivity that way, or using for security measures. And, So the workforce is changing and they're expecting some of these tools to be there. So we really do need them to help recruit these people in.
Yeah, I've got a daughter. She's in 9th grade. She's my youngest, and her entire, even in elementary school, she was able to check her grades on a daily basis online. That's all she's ever known. And I remember, we're similar age, I think. I remember not knowing until the day grades came out what I was going to get, because there was no
So you got that the manila folder or the paper you pulled out.
Paper with a number 2 pencil. Yeah.
All the carbon copies that went to the parents and teachers and stuff.
Yeah. So you're right. I think society generally, the youth have been conditioned to not only be fluent with these applications and with mobile technology, they depend on it, they count on it, and they expect it. So
yeah. Yeah, scary enough, Mike, they don't even do spelling tests anymore because kids are all using technology and they're not learning to spell. Everything's
Google it. I'll just Google it, spell check.
Auto-correcting it as you go.
Yeah.
And if you're like me, and I always encourage the field guys, I use the microphone because I got big fingers. So if you can't type it, do the speech to text.
Right. Perfect. Well, that's great. Well, I've had a great time talking with you. There's a lot more we could dive into, and we'll have to try and schedule another call coming up and do some more of this. I guess as I kind of wind up here, one question I'd like to ask towards the end of these conversations is, what's one hack or skill set or process, something that you've kind of learned through your years of experience that you count on regularly, and kind of, if you had a superpower, what's that thing that makes you Jeffrey?
I think it's understanding. I don't know if it's a superpower as much as it is, nose to the grindstone type thing, which says, if we want to achieve X and Y, and that's what we're saying as a company, let's work backwards from that to today and put a plan in place of everything we need to do to achieve that goal. And then let's all agree on it and then commit to it, set measurable KPIs, and hold each other accountable to achieve it. Just like software, it's no magic bullet. There's no magic bullet to success. It's hard work, it's planning for success and following the plan.
Oh, I love it. Boy, well said. That's a great way to end. So thank you again for joining us today, Jeffrey. This is very enjoyable. And I think not only the listeners, but myself, I gained some valuable insights from you. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. And don't forget that trademark, we're splitting it 50-50.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Well, thank you to the listeners for joining us today on the Mobile Workforce Podcast, sponsored by About Time Technologies and WorkMax. If you like the conversation Jeffrey and I had today, or we're able to learn anything new and insightful, we encourage you to please follow us on Instagram at @workmax_ and subscribe to the show on iTunes or your preferred platform for listening to podcasts. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast, please share it with your industry friends and leave us a 5-star review and rating so we can continue to bring these valuable conversations to you and your organization to help improve your business and your life.